Hello, my name is William Bunbury, and I'm talking to you about the Lisnavagh Timber Project. So we're here at Lisnavagh in the north of County Carlow, which is about 600 acres in all. There would be 200 acres of woodland in amongst that, a lot of small parcels of woodland, mixed woodland, mainly hardwood, but lots of different species within those woods. There's also at Lisnavagh, we have Lisnavagh House, where we do a number of weddings, yoga retreats and other events. We have quite a few cottages, which are mainly let out through Airbnb, particularly during the pandemic. They were extremely popular. We obviously do some of the farming, we do the tillage farming ourselves. The grass is let out. That may change a little bit in coming years. But on the forestry side of things, I came back here to Lisnavagh 20 years ago and was trying to think what we do with the timber coming from the woods and whether we can do better than to sell it to a timber merchant. Not that there's anything wrong with timber merchants, but maybe we could make something out of the wood and sell it for more than we can sell a tree. So we picked up 60 tons of logs that were lying around the place, 3 lorry loads, brought them to a sawmill in Wicklow, and we planked the timber there with someone who knew what they were doing, so that was good. It was a good start, and I started selling timber to furniture makers. I got it kiln dried in Wicklow, brought it back here and designed a website attached to lisnavagh.com that sold hardwood timber, and it grew from there. I also designed a spreadsheet that became a database that kept track of all the different logs that we had in our sawmilling yard, and also, more importantly, it kept track of all the planks of timber. Sorry, my dog is digging a hole right beside the camera. I don't know if that's interfering with the shots. The database kept track of every plank that came out of these logs, and we measured the planks, we graded the planks, and that meant that I knew how many 1-inch oak planks I had, or 2-inch beech planks, and when they were sawn, because they needed to dry and air dry. So I think what I'll probably do next is I might take this camera down to the farmyard where the workshop is in the sawmill area, and I'll explain a bit more about what we do down there. Actually, before we go down to the farmyard, I just want to show you in this wood, as I happen to be passing. It's a young beech wood, or fairly young. On the edge of it we left some trees, including chestnuts. In Storm Barra in December 2021, that chestnut blew down, unfortunately, horse chestnut, so it's not much good for us in terms of timber. For the timber project, a bit of firewood. It's not great firewood either. The best thing a horse chestnut can do is stay standing, but unfortunately that one didn't. When I was looking at that though, I came across this fella, which is an ash tree that came down in the same storm, and that is more interesting. It's a reasonably sizable tree, and it's certainly got some commercial timber in it, as well as clearly a lot of firewood. Very hard to see underneath all that ivy. There's a colossal amount of ivy on the tree. That may not have helped its chances in a bit of a wind. It acts like a sail, and that may be partly why it came down. The number you can see there is the log reference for this tree. 21 means 2021, the year, and 08 simply means it's the 8th tree to go onto our database this year. So it's a very simple numbering system. Later on, when we do tree reports and stamp chopping boards with log references, that would actually read 210008. I just wanted to go off topic for a moment because there's more to woods than timber. There's the amenity value, the aesthetics, the landscape, carbon sequestration, and we've found recently that we've been sitting on a very useful resource for our yoga retreats. About 20 minutes ago we just finished one, a silent walk through the woods. 8 of our guests came out with Emily and walked for about a bit over an hour most of it, not all of it, in silence, and it's very good for mental health. We've also found it hugely advantageous to have these woods as a resource for corporate events. So perhaps a bit of clay pigeon shooting in the morning, followed in the afternoon by a bushcraft course in the woods just up here, for example. So there are many things one can do with one's woods beyond just growing timber. House is looking pretty fantastic today.
RTE Radio 1.
No, Cork Park is not in Cork, it's in Clondalkin. It's off the N7 near the Green Isle Hotel.
It's the digger which we use to extract timber from the woods. It's giving a bit of a clean. The grab on the front is just being fixed. And we want to get that timber that I just showed you out of the woods as soon as possible. This is the timber project. So this is where we bring the logs to when they come out of the woods. There's not very many around at the moment. In fact, most of what you can see here has been rejected year after year when we're sawmilling, and is probably firewood. There's a little bit of oak at the back there, which is good to go. As before, you can see a log reference on the log there, 1803. The 0.3 at the end means it's the third log from that tree. We do the sawmilling under cover over there if it's raining, or out in the open if it's a lovely day. We use the digger to load the sawmill with logs. The mobile sawmill is brought here on the back of a jeep and is up and running within a few minutes of arriving. And we go hell for leather for 3 or 4 days with everyone we can muster to get 30, 40, 50 tons, depends what we're sawing, planked into mainly 1 and 2 inch planks. The timber is brought in under cover where it is allowed to air dry. Every plank is given a number, and its dimensions are recorded, it's graded, and any quirkiness or features on the plank are noted at the same time. That all then gets entered onto the database. The timber is left to air dry in this shed for a year or two. Basically the rule of thumb is a 1 inch plank takes a year, a 2 inch plank takes 2 years, and so on. Air drying brings the moisture content of the timber down to 18-20% in Ireland, and that is not good enough for the furniture industry, who need that timber down to give or take 10%. So we kiln dry it here. We have 4 kilns, well 2.5 actually for various reasons, but anyway, this is a kiln we're about to set off. I haven't turned the lights on, but I think you'll be able to see. It's a fairly simple kiln. So we've got some 2 inch oak in here, which has been around for about 3 years actually. You can see here a white box which contains a dehumidifier and a heater. There's a long line of fans go right down the full 26 foot of this kiln to the far end. There's about 6 fans plus the heater fan, and that 2 inch material will probably take 4 or 5 weeks, something like that, to bring down to 10%. As long as every sample I take, and I take quite a few, as long as they're all below 12%, and you'll find some are 8%, then I'm fine with that, and that's what comes out of the kiln and is ready for sale or for making things from. The kiln dried timber is then brought through that big door into this space here where it is kept dry. This is all 1 inch oak, that's 2 inch oak. We have ash underneath here, and we have chestnut, Spanish chestnut, just 2 bits left there. That's more oak, and we have more oak here, with the top plank actually being a big piece of sycamore. Here we have some cherry, and we have some more sycamore here, and sycamore again, beech, a little bit of elm, really not very much, a bit more beech, 1 inch beech, 2 inch beech, 3 and 4 inch oak pieces there, some nice big wide pieces of 2 inch oak, lots of stresses and crack strains in them, but they're still attractive to certain people for particularly, say, I'm thinking of a cocktail bar countertop that was made from one of these, and a few other projects. In fact, this one over here is going to WIT as a plaque. Having started the whole timber project in 2001, we was just selling timber to furniture makers at that stage. By 2004, I'd built a small workshop. I was able to make basic things like kitchen worktops, bookshelves and things like that, tabletops, and that was going okay. It was like William's little hobby on the estate. By the time we got to 2008, though, we were trying to up our game a bit, and so we decided we'd make high-end chopping boards that we would get into shops and sell at a good price. And we came up with the name Bunbury Boards through our marketing person, which made me cringe quite a lot to begin with, but I got used to it, and we got them into places like the Kilkenny shop and so on. And this is the workshop in which they were made. I'm slightly cheating because there was actually a different workshop when we first started making them, but this we moved into in 2010. It's a substantial building, which we put up especially for the timber project, for it to expand into. A quick run through the process of the timber in this workshop. The first machine it's likely to meet is this 30-inch planer thicknesser made by Wadkin. Every plank, as you know, has a number on it, and our database knows how big it is. It also knows its cost of production. As we process each piece of, or each plank rather, the number goes into this book here. It's written down, and at the end of any given month I can take those numbers, put them into my magic database, and it says that I used 582 euros worth of timber, or whatever the figure may be. And it's really important to know that the cost of my timber and the cost of my labour is less than what I've sold everything for. That's really obviously quite important. After the planer thicknesser, we use templates to basically draw shapes on each plank of wood, which we're then going to cut the boards out from. We'll probably start with the table saw here to rough it out. We'll probably go over to a band saw then, where we may cut curvy corners and so on. We'll use an edge sander, which has just been doing these boards to make sure that the edges are nice and smooth. We then may drill a hole in for a handle or something, if some boards, in fact something like this, is going to have a hole the top of it here, so that's what that's for. This is a table sander which can sand quite a few boards at once. Oh, and there's a router here which would put a rounded edge on some of the boards, not all of them, certain styles. The boards then come over here where they are belt sanded, one of these guys. We then hand sand the edges just to make sure that they're all nice and smooth before giving it a final run with a 180 grit orbital sander and then a 240 grit orbital sander. So there you go, you've got all my secrets now. When the boards are finished, they're brought through into here, and they're ready for stamping with a log reference, and then for oiling. I know what planks went through that planer thicknesser a couple of days ago. I know what trees were used to make these chopping boards from, and I therefore know what log references to write or stamp onto the back of the boards. So we just have a generic stamp first, and then the specific number for that tree next. That's how it looks. So this is it before it's oiled. It's in about half an inch of oil here. Run a cloth around it. It's now oiled and ready to drip dry. Now, that's actually an oil that I make myself. I used to use Danish oil, but people got concerned about nut allergies because it's got tongue oil in it, which is a nut. And there's also naphtha, which is another word for white spirits or petrol or something, and cobalt, heavy metals. So I thought I'd do my own oil, which is basically linseed oil heated up, blended with a couple of things which are all natural, like cold pressed orange juice and so on, to just draw the oil into the wood. But it doesn't dry as quickly as the say boiled linseed oil. It takes longer, but that's good because it means my boards can stay here until tomorrow, and I'll wipe them off. The oil that's you can see glistening on the side there, that oil is basically going into the wood quite slowly, but by tomorrow those boards will be dry. So from 2008 to 2016 we had a fair range of chopping boards in quite a few shops in Ireland, the UK and the States, and it was a marketing success. We were in quite a few shops, as I say, and some quite well known like Marks and Spencer's, John Lewis, Harrods, in Arnott's, Kilkenny shops. So yeah, quite a range of shops. Some would be more garden centre-y, and some would be huge department stores, or say Williams Sonoma in America, which is I think got 700 and something shops. So it was a marketing success, but I couldn't cover the overheads of our wonderful sales girl in the room down there, and production manager in here, bookkeepers, marketing costs, trade shows and so on. And the end result was that I had to stop trying to conquer the world with chopping boards, and we just restricted it to an online shop. So our main sales streams for the timber are the raw timber going to furniture makers, the commissioned items, for example that plaque, but we've also got 2 worktops. A lot of people looking for kitchen worktops as it happens this month. I don't know why, it's January, so maybe that's why. And then of course there's the Bunbury boards. Since 2016, when I pulled out of the major retailers and reduced my overhead significantly, the struggling business that it had been became a profitable hobby with a pretty steady income in 2017, 18 and 19. Interestingly, in 2020, our sales then went up 25%. Now that might be because I had more time for this business, as opposed to getting involved in lots of weddings up at the house and so on, because they'd all been cancelled. But things did pick up in 2021 in that respect, and yet my sales in 2021 went up another 40% on 2020. So there's definitely an increase in demand for local produce, anything that's locally made and not just designed locally but made locally, and from Irish materials. I think there's a market for them. So I think 2022 is getting off to a pretty good start. We're only halfway through the first month, but the indications are that we're on a good upward curve with this business, and I would hope that the same might apply to anyone else who's getting involved in anything similar in Ireland. Okay, I think that's me done. I'd just like to say thank you for listening and good luck to all of you. Cheers. Bye bye.